Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Now available on Apple Podcasts, PodcastOne, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
The Steve Austin Show is brought to you free today by our friends at BetOnline. Get in the mix at betonline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partner of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, here's Steve Austin.
Hey, I'm sitting here shooting the breeze with James Harris, the one and only Kamala, the Ugandan giant, Kamala. James, welcome to the show. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm doing real good.
I'll tell you what, it's good to talk to you. We started trading a few phone calls a few weeks back and finally was able to hook up for the podcast. But, man, I got to say, I was a huge fan of yours growing up. And I remember when y'all first busted out the Kamala character there in the USWA, or maybe it was CWA at the time, but it just had me hook, line, and sinker. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I had so much fun watching you, so thank you for all the years of entertainment.
Oh, man, sure, you're welcome. I enjoyed doing it.
I know that's what I tell people all the time when they say they had a good time watching me. I was like, man, that's the best job I ever had. I mean, you know, you get dressed up, you go out in a squared circle, you tell a little story in front of a bunch of people, and then you ride down the road. It can be a very hard life, but it's the most fun life you could ever have in regards to making a living, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed it. I met a lot of guys on the road and good friends. We tell stories and make a few bucks. So, man, I really enjoyed it. Got a chance to see the country, so it was good.
Hey, now, when you first broke into business, you grew up the son of a sharecropper, correct?
Yeah, I grew up the son of a sharecropper. We would pick cotton, chop cotton. I plowed the mules and did all this stuff, make the whole crop sometimes by myself. And then we would do sharecropping with some big farmer, break the land, plant the cotton, plant corn, and then harvest it. We did it all.
But then that's how you grew up, and then you decided to get out of there, and you moved from Florida to where you went to your next job.
I was in Mississippi during that time. Then I moved to Florida.
Right.
And I moved to Florida, and I was picking fruit and doing irrigation work down there. But I had a number of jobs after I got to Florida, but picking fruit was my first.
Well, what made you decide to finally say, hey, you know what? I think professional wrestling is what I would be good at. Maybe I should give this a try. It was you listening to the conversations of the guys who used to watch wrestling, right?
Well, yeah, I used to watch wrestling, but I never wanted to get in wrestling. I never wanted to be a wrestler, and I always attended wrestling. Some of my biggest heroes was guys that I wrestled later on, like Andre the Giant, Dusty Rhodes, guys like that. And, I mean, that was just amazing to do that. But I never wanted to get in wrestling, but after I got in it, I wanted to do good at it.
Yeah, but a guy with your size and strength, because at your biggest, I mean, you're what, 6'7", 360?
I was just 6'4", my true weight, but I was 410 pounds was my biggest.
I mean, dude, you never played any football?
No, just a little high school, and that's it.
Well, did you play on the football team? Because, you know, when I look back, you know, with the leapfrog and all the stuff that you did in the ring, I mean, you would have been, to me, like a natural fit on a football field.
I just played a little high school football, and that was it. I was on the high school team and for a couple of years. But now the leapfrogging, that comes from Kerry Von Erich.
I know. I want to get to Kerry Von Erich, but before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about Bobo Brazil because, I mean, he's one of the most famous black wrestlers of all time. Now, how did you hook up with Bobo Brazil? Because, I mean, a guy like this to take you under his wing and teach you the trade is a pretty big score. How did that happen?
What happened is I moved to Michigan, to Ben Harbor, Michigan, and I moved up there and I was living with my sister. and I was trying to find a job, and I couldn't find a job, and my sister's boyfriend was taking me around doing an application, trying to find me a job. So I know I used to watch wrestling on TV a lot, and I told him, I got disgusted one time. I told him, I said, I ought to just go and wrestle. He hit his brick. He said, well, I'll take you to a wrestler. And he took me to this guy called Tainted Tim,
right,
who's a good friend of Bobo Brazil. And after that, I met Bobo Brazil. After I told the guy I ought to go and wrestle, I hated to back down. So I went ahead on and I traveled with Bobo Brazil and, watched them, but they never smartened me up. So I traveled with them, and my Tainted Tim started training me. So that's how I got into it.
Yeah, but a guy with your size, and Tiny Tim, that was his nickname because he was a big dude as well. So what did the training consist of? I mean, because once you got in the ring, before you became Kamala, or you were trying to work more like in a traditional style of wrestling, although in a big man's body, correct?
Yeah. Well, when I first started wrestling, I would just wrestle with Sugar Bear Harris, and I wrestled with I was with Micah Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Percy Pringle, who was my first manager. And it was about 4 years later before I, became Kamala.
Now tell me about the gimmick of Sugar Bear Harris, because I know Kamala, the Ugandan Giant or the Ugandan Warrior, I get that, and I loved it, and I was scared of him. But what was Sugar Bear Harris all about? Were you just a straight-up babyface?
Yeah, I was a babyface, and the name came from when I was playing football. They got it off of my football coach got it off of TV. Something about some Sugar Crisps or something like that. Can't get enough of those Sugar Crisps, and he started calling me Sugar Bear. So when I started wrestling, the Great Mephisto was the one who gave me first match. So he asked me, he said, now what name do you use? He said, a lot of guys have different names that they want to be called. And I told him, I said, Bearcat, because Bearcat was my name since I was, I guess, about 5 or 6 years old enough to remember.
Right.
And so I said, Bearcat, Sugar Bear. And he said, how about Sugar Bear? And we shoot you in there as a baby face. And that's how that name come up.
Well, see, all you years as Sugar Bear, how hard was it back then for a black wrestler to get booked in the early days?
Well, it was really hard because if you call a territory, I say, for instance, I called Jim Crockett Promotion because I just couldn't stay in one place all the time. And I called Jim Crockett Promotion. They would tell me that, yeah, we already have one black in here, but once he leaves, we'll consider you. We keep your name down. So it just was hard during that time. And then they would always just flat out beat a black wrestler.
What was the deal about then, back in the day? You just figured you could only have one black guy in the territory.
I never understood that. But, after I heard that so much, I thought that's the way it was supposed to be.
Well, so you wrestled for a couple of years in the States, and then you ended up going down to Mexico, and then you went to Germany and England. And this is before you had your big break when you went back down to Memphis and turned into Kamala when you met with Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett. But what did you learn once you went over to Mexico? I mean, man, when you talk about a lucha libre style and you're 6'4", close to 400 pounds, and with a communication gap because I don't guess you spoke too much Spanish like myself. So how did that translate over there as far as your work style in the squared circle in Mexico?
I guess because we could just, after I had been there for a while, we could just read each other because I couldn't speak Spanish. We could just read each other, but they had a lot of guys there that did speak English. and we'd get together in the dressing room, and they'd tell us what they want us to do and how they want us to do it, and that's just how we caught on with each other. They caught on with my style, and I caught on with theirs, even though I couldn't do a lot of stuff that they did.
Now, see, I'm a big fan of Mexican food. It's my favorite food in the world, and I understand you love Mexican food as well. But when you went down there, I mean, you were pretty much living there, because it wasn't like it was a go tour Mexico for 3 weeks and go home. You were in Mexico and you stayed there. And where did you stay? What city were you based out of?
I was in Mexico City, and I stayed there, I think, for a few months. And after that, that's when I went to England.
Okay, so a totally different style of wrestling in England, more obviously European flavored and a little bit more on the technical end. But they did have some big guys back in the day. So in England, you were Sugar Bear Harris and just working a big man style?
No, when I went to England, I was Big Jim Harris, the Mississippi Mauler.
Oh, the Mississippi Mauler.
Yeah, that was the name I used when I was in England. And it was some big guys there. They had like Giant Haystack was over 500 pounds. I worked with him. Big Daddy was probably about the same, just a little shorter. And I worked with Wayne Bridges. I worked with a lot of the big guys over there. And I worked with a lot of the small guys.
Now, how did you like the food over there? Because, man, that's one thing. I love England as a country, but eating over there is a little bit different because everything's different in the United States. Now, I love Mexican food, so Mexico would have been cool with me, but England is a whole different ballgame. What were you eating over there?
When I was in England, I was eating I ate fish and chips, stuff like that. I eat a lot of fish over there.
Yeah, because you got to eat fish and chips. As far as English-type food, fish and chips is pretty much my go-to meal as well. And, again, I love England, but these days if you go over there, it's like bangers and mash. And their bacon is different than our bacon. So everything's just a little bit different over there. I have a very many Steve Austin Show listeners over there, but just the food differences kind of throw me off when I go over there. How did you like that style of work over there? And what did you think about your stay in England?
Well, England was all right. The work was different from the United States, but during that time, I hadn't been in the business for a few years, so I learned to adjust to it, and it was just was an everyday thing to me. And then I got some experience over there, and they really helped me out a lot. Now,
in regards to how did they help you, and were y'all working the 5-minute round system back then?
Yeah, I don't remember how many rounds we were. I guess it was a 5-minute round. But I know we were working by rounds. Yeah.
And did that throw you off, or did that help you? Because, it's almost like working a 5-minute mini match versus, a 30-minute time limit, let's say, in the United States.
Yeah. It threw me off after I first got there, but I learned to adjust to it real easy. One thing, that old 5-minute round, I didn't blow up.
Yeah, that's the good thing about a 5-minute round. You get a minute break after each one. That would have worked well for me.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
When you need a lender who can help you every step of the way with a process built around you, Rocket can. Get started online at rocketmortgage.com/Austin. You can plan with certainty knowing you have a mortgage solution that works for you. Because when you need a mortgage that fits your life, Rocket can. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
So, and you were still working just straight up big man style, and then hang on, sorry about that. So you're basically just working a straight up big man style. So how was it? Because I read about the legend of Big Daddy and how over he was. How was he to work with, and why was he such a big star over there?
He was a big star there, and he was easy to work with, so easy because Big Daddy didn't do nothing. He hardly went off his feet. So, he didn't know a hip lock from a hip toss from a drop kick. Big Daddy didn't do nothing in the ring. I mean, he was a good guy. He was really easy to work with. And he was beating everybody, so I guess that's why he was over with the people, because you can go to the ring and you work against Big Daddy, and they say, Big Daddy going to beat you tonight. You going down, stuff like that. So he was over with the fans there.
Now, I'm not asking for a dollar amount, but how was the money in England versus the money in Mexico is in regards to getting paydays?
The money was a lot better in England than Mexico. Yeah, it was a lot better because in Mexico I stayed down there, but they paid for my travel, my hotel, and stuff like that. And then plus they paid me.
But in Mexico and England, I'm guessing that when you guys went to the towns, they always had someone driving, because Mexico would have had to been a real pain in the ass to drive around. And England, kind of a hassle. It's almost the same, but you're driving on the wrong side of the road over there, the right side of the road for them. But did you drive over in England, or did you just ride?
No, I didn't drive at all in England. They always had a car to pick me up, and they always paid for it. So no, I didn't drive at all. I didn't want to drive there.
So in England, as the Mississippi Mauler, were you a big star over there? Where were you on the card? I mean, if you're working with Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks, I'm guessing main event.
Yeah, I was in the main event a lot with Big Daddy, Giant Haystack, Wayne Bridges, Pete Roberts. I was in the main event a lot, but I wasn't in the main event every night. But I was in the main event a lot.
How long did the England stay last?
1 year.
Man, that's a long time. I can imagine that was one solid year over there without coming back. Am I right?
Yeah, I stayed over there 1 year, and the reason I probably would have stayed longer, but I got my ankle broke.
Yeah.
And so I came home.
Now this is interesting, because as I talk to you now, James, that year stay in England, I don't see that it doesn't sound like you picked up any bit of an English accent.
No, I didn't pick up I didn't pick up an English accent, but I started saying a lot of things that they said, and the reason is because so we would understand each other.
Right.
Yeah. Now they would say, like your car.
Yeah.
The trunk of your car. They call it your boot.
The boot. Yeah.
And candy. They call candy rock, but I wouldn't dare use rock over here.
Hey, did you start drinking hot tea when you were in England?
Yeah, most everything was hot over there. You could get a cold beer in the pub. It'd be fairly cold, so it was all right. But you had to drink fast. They told me when I got there, so now if you drink beer, you have to drink fast. And I found out the reason why, because at that time, when the pubs opened, they just still like 2 hours.
Right.
So you got to drink all you could drink in those 2 hours.
Were you a beer drinker?
No, I drank some beer, but I wasn't a big beer drinker. I drank my whiskey.
Now, you like whiskey?
Yeah.
What flavor whiskey you like?
Well, I used to drink the Jack Daniel.
Yep.
Then I drank the Crown Royal, which I don't drink anything now, but Hennessy ended up being my favorite drink.
Yeah, I ended up being a Crown Royal guy for a lot of my years there in the WWF. I enjoy that stuff. Hey, man, you talk about breaking your leg over in England, and I know when you went down to Mid-South or Memphis, you was looking for Troy Graham, the Dream Machine. Is that when you went down there, coming back from England? Because when were you in Germany?
I was in Germany in 1980, I believe. That was some years ago. And then the next time I had a European tour, and I was in Germany, and I believe it was around 91.
But how was Germany for you? Because then again, here we are with a language gap. And, I mean, I can kind of pick up a little bit of Spanish here and there, but Germany is totally not my cup of tea. So how was that over there with the translation process?
Well, what we did was, we always can find somebody that speak English, and they would speak that language for us. And I bought a book where I was trying to learn how to speak it. So it wasn't that hard, because somebody was always with us that could speak that language.
Yeah, man, and that's a beautiful country. I had a good time over there. But
yeah.
Oh, you like Germany?
Yeah, I love Germany.
What'd you like about it?
Clean country.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, I like the food.
Yeah.
I like to look at the good-looking women. Just look.
Okay, if you say just look. And, yeah, I dig some schnitzel, too. I like to eat that damn they got some good food in Germany. It's a little bit different from England. But when you said you come back from England with that broke ankle, was that when you went down to Mid-South and was looking for Troy Graham, and that's when Jerry Lawler saw you?
Yeah, I had come back from England. My ankle was in a cast, but I took the cast off and just wrapped it with tape. And that's when I went to see the Dream Machine, because my wrestling tights, all my stuff was coming by sea, and they said that it'll take about 30 days. So I went to see the Dream Machine to get stuff from him, so that whenever I got ready to go back to work, that I would already have some stuff. So that's when I saw Jerry Lawler first. I saw Jerry Lawler, and he didn't want to let me in the back, so he said, can I help you? I said, yeah, I'm looking for the Dream Machine. And he said, who are you? I said, Lawler, you looking at me like you don't know me. I said, before when I was here at Sugar Bear, I had hair on my head. He said, oh, yeah. Yeah, he said, you looking for work? I said, well, yeah. He said, I tell you what I want you to do. Turn around and go home, and don't let the people see you, and I will give you a call Wednesday, I believe it was, and I got some good for you. Oh, man, that's all I wanted to hear. I turned around and went home, and I kept this old ankle soaked because I got my ankle broke.
Yeah.
I kept it soaked, trying to get it ready for whatever Lawler had for me. And he did call that Wednesday. And when he called, he asked me, could I come to Hendersonville? And I told him, yeah. And I went to Hendersonville up to Jared's house. And that's when we filmed that little vignette. I didn't know what they was going to do. So Lawler asked me, did I mind taking my mask off? I said, no. I took it off. After I took it off, Lawler started painting. And he started painting, and then he told me to look in the mirror. And he asked me, he said, now, are you ashamed to wear this? I said, no. If it's going to make me some money, no, I'm not ashamed. And so that's where the Kamala came. He said, we're going to call you Kamala, Kimala. And that's where it comes from.
Lawler told me the story when you showed up there at the, I guess it was Mid-South Coliseum, and the show was about to start, and he turned around, he saw this big human being, holy smokes, and like you said, he didn't recognize you, but all of a sudden, he says this gigantic human being, and I think he saw dollar signs, and so when you showed up down there at Jerry's place, and y'all filmed that vignette, and I'll never forget that vignette, because when that thing came out, those videos were done, they were so far ahead of their time. All the videos they did, they did a lot of them of the Superstar, of Jerry Lawler, and guys like that. And when they did the Kamala videos and they did that voiceover and said, Kamala, the Ugandan giant, Kamala. Yeah. I said, shoot, man, I'm hooked. I'm in. So, how long did that take? I would imagine that was a pretty efficient process. And what did you think once you saw that paint? I mean, were you cool with being Kamala?
Yeah. Oh, I love gimmicks like that, and I love doing it myself. So I just enjoyed doing it, and I was glad he thought of it. Yeah, so when I saw the paint on my face, and it looked different from what I ever seen, but I enjoyed it, and he said, now, you're not going to be ashamed. He said, you're going to work with me Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum, the main event. I said, I'm ready. And when I got in that ring, that first match, I just felt at home. And I felt the gimmick. The gimmick was just what I wanted, just right down my style, with no hesitation or nothing. I enjoyed the gimmick.
So how many years had you been in the ring prior to getting this break as Kamala? Because I always thought Kamala was one of the greatest gimmicks of all time. But you changed your work style because you're working as a big man, kind of putting on wrestling matches, and now they want you to be a monster. And then whose idea was it to come with the overhand chop? Because you eliminate the working punch. The chop seems like maybe, I guess a Ugandan warrior would use. So what did you do then, just in regards to your offense to simplify it? And you were vicious and you moved well in the ring. So how did that let me ask you this first question. How long had you been working before you got the Kamala gimmick?
4 years.
So when you got the gig, you was ready and knew the ins and outs of wrestling. You had been working as a babyface, though, and now you're working heel. How did you like working heel for a change?
Oh, I love working heel. I love working heel because you can do some of everything, and it's just being a bad guy. That's what I liked it.
I like working heel better than babyface, too. I just always felt like it gave me more freedom. Next question is, you're Kamala now. You're the Ugandan giant. You don't speak English, obviously. So had you been cutting promos around the other territories, when you were Sugar Bear Harris or the Mississippi Mauler? And how comfortable with the promo process were you? Because as the silent Ugandan warrior, it was dollar signs and it worked perfect, especially later on when they put Friday and Kim Chi with you. So were you cutting promos before you were Kamala?
Yeah, I did a few. As Sugar Bear Harris, but the majority of the people didn't know that I was Sugar Bear Harris, that I once was Sugar Bear Harris, because I remember one lady, she said, "You still wrestling?" I said, "Yeah, I'm still wrestling." Well, I tell you what, you better not go to Memphis. They got a thing, they call me a thing. They got a thing up there called Kamala. She didn't know she was talking to Kamala. Yeah. And that thing got a chop and a kick. Oh, yeah, she was telling me all this stuff, but she didn't know it.
So once you you start working with Lawler, and they heated you up real quick. How was the money there in CWA working with Lawler and working for Jarrett?
Well, the money there was more money than I made when I was in England and definitely Mexico. And any of the places, I was making good money there compared to what I had made. So I was happy as I could be.
So after you worked with Jarrett, who are some of the other guys you would feud with in that territory?
I worked with Lawler. I worked with the Rock and Roll Express. I worked with Austin Isle, Big Ron Bass. No, it was a lot of different guys that I worked with, a lot of known guys.
So then when you started in there with working there with Lawler, how long did you stay there in the CWA and it was time to go down and work for Mid-South with Bill Watts?
I stayed there from March until about September. And it was time to go in because, I was doing real good there and the territory was growing really well. And they believed that it was sold out everywhere. And they brought Plowboy Frazier in as Kamala too. And all of a sudden, he couldn't speak English. And he had been there as some of everything. And so everybody knew him, and it just killed it. People said, "Oh, shucks, this a bunch of junk." And the house just killed the house. So right after that, I went to Bill Watts.
But see, it sounds like when they got a little greedy there and wanted too much of a good thing, and then when you insulted the people's intelligence because they were taking you for a shoot. I mean, they thought you were Kamala, and all of a sudden Kamala 2 comes on, not so much. And so sometimes that was just a bad idea, in my opinion, right?
Yeah. So I wonder why did they do that? Because I think they tried to do that because they only wanted this. Somebody used to grow in there They was the big dog, and they didn't want somebody else coming in there overdrawing them. Maybe for a little while, but that was it.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
Did you know that right now Geico is offering an extra 15% credit on car, motorcycle, and RV policies? That's 15% on top of the money Geico can already save you. So what are you waiting for? Your dog to make you breakfast in bed? With Belgian waffles and a fresh fruit compote? As nice as that sounds, that's probably never going to happen. But at least there's never been a better time to switch to Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th. Visit geico.com to learn more.
Yeah, that's interesting that you would say that. So sometimes I've kind of thought that during parts of my career. Hey, I'm talking to Kamala, the Ugandan giant, James Harris. I'm coming right back to talk about working for Bill Watts in the Mid-South Territory after a word from my sponsors.
TrueCar.com is changing car buying forever. Yes, every day TrueCar users receive negotiation-free guaranteed savings. Some features not available in all states. In the first 3 months of this year, over 126,000 cars were sold by the TrueCar Certified Dealer Network. TrueCar users save an average of $3,078 off MSRP. When you're ready to buy a car, just follow these 3 easy steps. First, go to TrueCar.com and find out what other people paid for the car you're looking for. Then, register at TrueCar.com to see upfront pricing information and lock in your savings. And the third step is simple. Just print out your TrueCar savings certificate and take it to the TrueCar certified dealer for a better, hassle-free car buying experience. Every day, TrueCar.com users receive negotiation-free, guaranteed savings. Save time, save money, and never overpay. Visit TrueCar.com today. That's TrueCar.com.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, sit here and talk with Kamala, James Harris. I'm a big fan. Hey, when you rolled down to Mid-South, James, you were very fond of Bill Watts. It seems y'all got along very well for some reason. Why was that? Because, I mean, he was a big, rough, tough guy that had heat with a lot of people.
He had heat with a lot of people. I had heard a lot of things about him before I went down there, a lot of negative things about him before I went down there. But I went down there anyway, and I knew if I didn't like it, I'd just leave. And but when I went down there, Bill Watts was the best thing ever happened to me, you know, in the wrestling business. I went down there. He treated me well. He got me. He had me over down there. He had me a driver. He had me a manager Fridays, and I protected my gimmick.
Now, when you went to Mid-South, I mean, he put you with Skandar Akbar, correct?
Yes.
Now, Skandar Akbar really took me under his wing when I was down in Dallas, Texas, and I broke in the back end of 1989 and 1990, and I would ride in the back seat of the car with Skandar Akbar and Bronco Lubitsch, and they would tell stories and ask me questions and give me psychology lessons and really, really took care of me. So now you're being managed by Skandar Akbar, and one of his things, again, protecting your gimmick was, you know, we can't have the Ugandan giant driving down the road, so you were riding on most of these trips, and you learned something about money from Skandar Akbar. And I learned the same thing. I wish you would share that bit of knowledge that Skandar Akbar dropped on you that he dropped on me.
Akbar, he used to tell me, he said, James, you're making money now. You're doing good. You're not doing drugs like a lot of the other guys is doing, blowing your money. And a lot of them, they don't own a home or nothing. And he said, you know, like you and I, we share rooms, even though we didn't have to because we were making money.
Right.
We share rooms, we save our money, we eat well. Akbar always told us to eat well, and just save your money. So I did all of it, and I think about that today, what he was telling me. And a lot of times as we get to a town, like before 12 o'clock that night, I think it was, we get to that town at night and go get us a motel room. What we would do instead of going to the motel room and have to check out at 6 and pay again, we'll sleep in the rest area. And we didn't want the fans to see us. And some of the boys, I don't forget who it was, they caught us in the rest area. They laughed and talked and joked us for a while. Well, we were laying in the rest area, sleep, legs out the one. Yeah.
Hey, you mentioned drugs. How bad were the drugs in the business back in those days?
The drugs they was bad. They was bad during that time. And they told me when I first got into business, if you're not on something, when you get into business, you will be on something. Well, here I am 64 years old and haven't been on it yet.
What was your big thing there to be able to resist the peer pressure? Just the way you was brought up?
I guess so. And what I would do is go to stores, look around, go to Walmart, walk around, and find me a good eating place and eat. And that was my enjoyment. Now, I would drink some beer, and I would drink a little whiskey. I never would drink, like, right before I got to go to do a match or something like that, because I'd go to sleep.
Hey,
and I wouldn't be able to perform.
Hey, I've heard so many stories about the Mid-South travel schedule with that territory spanning the 3 or 4 states that it did. How brutal was the travel schedule there? Because, I mean, man, if you go from CWA to Mid-South, you're in for a hell of a rude awakening. Luckily, you were able to be a passenger because Kamala doesn't drive. Tell me about that schedule, man. How grueling was that?
Oh, we drive like, I say, one night we in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We worked there that night, and the next night we could be in Oklahoma City, and it was all driving. But what I did was just sit back and sleep. So I never did drive.
Hey, well, let me ask you a question. When you're sleeping, did you get any heat in the car because you were sleeping?
No. They didn't mind it, because, see, what I was doing, we had a van. I had a van that I bought, and Friday would drive in. We traveled in. We didn't know how to travel with any of the rest of the boys. It'd just be me, Akbar, and Friday, and sometime we have somebody with us. Oh, they didn't bother.
Now, y'all splitting that gas 3 ways, or were you not having to pay because it was your van?
No, we still would split the gas 3 ways.
Man, I tell you what.
That was my idea. We just split the gas 3 ways. And sometime we would rent a car. We'd rent a big car. We'd do the same with it, split it 3 ways.
Yep.
The gas, yeah.
Hey, the Mid-South territory was full of tough guys. And sometimes, Bill Watson let the guys do their thing if there was a beef that spilled outside the ring into the dressing room. And on one occasion, I guess Butch Reed was apparently a pretty salty dude. And they had a little skirmish. He had a little skirmish with John Nord there in the dressing room. How did that go down?
Well, what happened, they was in the ring, and when they got back to the dressing room, Butch Reed got back to the dressing room, and he was talking, he was just, we had stuff in the dressing room, and he was talking about John Noah Greenhorn, and he out there going to tell me this, and going to do this and do that. So anyway, some of them told him. Noah came across the back to the dressing room where we were. I was sitting right there. And they got into an argument, and all of a sudden John Noah, he punched him. He punched Butch Reed right in the eye. And after that, they got into it. And Butch, it was toe for toe. But then when Butch got his eyes, he held his finger thumbs in his eye, and Noah gave up. I mean, he was screaming, so everybody was trying to get Butch to not tear his eyes out of his head. So he stopped. So I I had my spear sitting there. I had a real spear, and it was sitting there. And Bill Dundee jumped over there and grabbed my spear and hid it, which I hadn't thought of it, but I'm glad it did. I'm glad that that was dangerous too.
Now, from how long were you in Mid-South? Because I know you wanted to stay there because you were making good money and you got along real well with Watts. But then, Watts decided, hey, James, it's time for you to leave out of here. So how long did your Mid-South run last?
It was, I believe it was a little over a year that I was there. And Bill Watts came to me and told me, he said, now, here's the thing. We don't want to burn you out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you to Fritz Von Erich, WCW. I think I had been down there a few times and worked a few shots. And he said, and he's going to treat you the same way I'm treating you. And when I got down there, he did, and I enjoyed that territory. It was real nice. I got along good with the boys, the Von Erich boys. For those Von Erich boys to own that territory, their dad owned that territory, they were good boys.
Now, was that the first time you started working with Bruiser Brody, or had you worked with him prior, or did you work with him in Mid-South? Because I know that you really enjoyed working with that guy and vice versa.
No, I hadn't worked with him before.
Okay.
Not that I can remember.
So did that happen in World Class?
Yeah, that happened in World Class.
What was it about you guys that clicked? Because he liked you, you liked him, and y'all had good matches together. And he was a big, rough, tough guy. And you kind of gravitated towards that crowd.
Yeah. He was a big, rough guy, and he was stiff, too. Yeah,
so when he's stiff, are you stiffing him back?
No, I never did stiff him back. I can't remember anybody I ever stiff back. But, yeah, that just was the way he worked. He didn't mean to hurt you or nothing like that. And he'd sit down in the room. He was a real serious guy, too. He'd sit down in the dressing room. He'd talk to you. And I never saw him play with anybody.
But, you always, you kind of always maintained, you kind of stayed to yourself. You weren't really known for hanging out and just shooting a breeze with the guys in the dressing room. You were very quiet. Did you converse with Brody? Because why were you always so quiet and you stayed to yourself? Is that just your nature?
Yeah, I guess it was. What I would do is I would always tell Akbar, let's don't stay at the same hotel the boys staying at. And the only reason is because, not that I was better than the boys, but the boys, they get you kicked out of hotels and they do all kind of stuff, and I just wasn't with it, so let them have their way. We just found us a hotel away from the board. That's the only thing.
How hard was it for you to protect that gimmick out on the road? You mentioned walking around Walmart and some other places when people didn't know who you were, but if it was at a hotel and there was people around, you maintained your silence. You protected your gimmick 24/7, right?
Yeah, I did. But when I'm walking around through Walmart and places like that, I don't have my gimmick on, so they don't recognize me. There's a few people have, but they don't really overall. They don't recognize me.
Hey, what was your thoughts on you mentioned the Von Erich boys and Fritz owning that territory, and man, those kids were on fire. Were you there when the Von Erich curse kind of happened, when they kind of started dropping off?
Yeah, I was there when David died. See, the missing link I wrestled David 2 days before he died. And the missing link, I think, wrestled him the day before he died. And a really, really good guy. He died over in Japan. But I knew all of them, got along good with all of them.
What did you make of that? I mean, just the tragic story of that family. Was it the Von Erich curse, or just kids living too fast?
Yeah, that too. I say it must be some kind of curse on those guys. The way they took their lives, it really was heartbreaking. It was lonely feeling when they do things like that.
Oh yeah, it was. I remember I was in that area when a couple of them went down. It was just like, oh man, people who weren't there don't understand how over those guys were. You had a bunch of you worked with all of them. How hot was Kerry at the time? Because he was the guy that really took it to the next level, and he was the guy that you credited with giving you the leapfrog. How did that conversation happen? Here's Kerry Von Erich telling Kamala, the Ugandan giant, he ought to do a leapfrog.
Yeah, I was working with Kerry like I had been working with him about 4 or 5 nights straight. And, they all call me Wally Wally. And,
How'd you get that nickname? Wally Wally. How'd they call you that?
Yeah, that's what they all call me, Wally Wally. That came from Junkyard Dog. And we was in the ring working one night, and Kerry said, he called the spot. I said, okay, you gonna leapfrog me? He said, no, you gonna leapfrog me. I said, I'm gonna leapfrog you. And we didn't have time to keep talking around in the ring. So when that spot came, I had to jump as high as I could. I didn't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And after that, I was doing leapfrog from then on. And when I did the leapfrog, it stunned me so I forgot what else to do. I was standing there.
Hey, you took some nice bumps over the top rope and sometimes over the second rope. What was your most serious injury in the ring, or were you ever hurt in the ring? Because I know that just from hearing word on the street and reading, people love to work with you because you were very gentle. But did you suffer any serious injuries in the ring?
No, not. Just the one when I was in England, got my ankle broke. That's the only one.
How long were you in World Class for before you headed out of there?
I was there about a year and a half, I think.
So what was the next stop?
The next stop was Profit Promotion, the NWA in North Carolina.
Yeah, but that was short-lived, wasn't it? How did that go?
Yeah. Oh, that was terrible. That was terrible.
What went wrong?
3 months.
What went wrong?
They wasn't using me. I mean, they were using me, but they had me like preliminary, and the money was so bad I couldn't stay there. So that's when I left there. I had to leave. I gave them my notice, and I left.
And then that's when you ended up in WWF?
Yeah, Vince had called. He had called Gary Hart, who was a good friend of mine. He had called Gary Hart, and Gary Hart got a hold of me and told me, "Sir, Vince is looking for you. He trying to call you." And so he left this number for me to give to you. So I said, well, I really wasn't ready for big time. I didn't know if I could handle it. So anyway, I called Vince up, and Vince said, look, I would like to have you as somebody that's really close to my heart recommend you come in and then me bring you in, and they love working with you. I said, who is that? He said, Andre the Giant. I said, oh, well, yeah. So anyway, he gave me a starting date. And he said, I want the other guy that's with you too, Friday. So we both went to the WWF.
So you had an interesting relationship with Andre the Giant. Y'all had worked together before, but once you got to WWF, is that when the incident happened?
No, it happened in Mid-South when I was with Bill Watts.
Oh, okay. I got crossed up there. So you're out there with Andre the Giant, and I guess you was a little bit nervous, blew a high spot, and Andre said something that you didn't like and totally offended you.
Yeah, we was in the ring. That was my very first time ever working with Andre. I had met him a lot of times, and it was my first time working with him. And in the ring, he called me a real bad name because of a spot that I missed.
Right.
And, so anyway, he called me that name, and he got up and he nailed me. And when he nailed me, that's when I went crazy on him, and I drove him back into that corner, and I just beat until I just got tired of beating. But it wasn't like I was throwing him all over the place or nothing like that. It was just that I was just nailing him. He was covering up a lot, but then it busted his lip and all that kind of stuff. And but we made up for that. It didn't go on every night.
It didn't go on every night, but a couple of nights later in the dressing room, I guess it was the first time you'd seen him since that happened, and you had to come to Jesus meeting with that guy.
Yeah. Well, what happened is I was still mad from the name he called me and the way he was, he jumped up and nailed me. Even though I got the best of him, the next night we was in Baton Rouge. And when we was in Baton Rouge, our dressing room Johns, all the dressing room Johns, and we could go back and forth and talk to each other. So I got my gun, put it in my pocket, old 357 Magnum, and I put it in my pants pocket. And I walked across over there to Andre. He was sitting there talking to Dusty Rhodes. And I said, Andre, don't you ever. I had my finger on his nose. I was popping his nose. And I'm glad to this day he didn't do it. I know I probably would have been in prison because when you try to fight him, because if Andre fought back, I couldn't have whooped that big guy.
Yeah.
And that guy, he wasn't just a big old guy and couldn't, he was a monster.
Right.
So anyway, he's all balls. I'm sorry. And I won't say what I told him after that. But anyway.
Y'all got along just fine from then on, huh?
We got along good from then on. And I remember one incident where we were working with each other in Lubbock, Texas. And I went to run from Andre. This was in the ring. I went to run from him. He grabbed my skirt, and it broke the string in my skirt. And so I just pulled the skirt off and kept on working. So I kept on working, and when I got to the dressing room, I had my skirt. I don't know where Andre got it from, but he come to the dressing room. I saw the boss and had a string. He had got a string from somewhere. I said, Andre, that was an accident. Don't you worry about that. But I tell you, Steve, Andre and I got along good from then on. We got along good. But I never did trust him, though.
Right.
That big song could crush you.
Hey, I got to meet Andre. He was on the crutches then. I guess he'd already had his back surgery, and he was on the way down. And he came through the restroom door there at Center Stage when I was working for WCW, and I was wrestling as Stunning Steve. Nobody really knew who I was, and he sure didn't. And he was one of the biggest stars in the world, or had been. And I stuck my hand out and introduced myself to him, and I met Andre before he died. But I always heard so many Andre stories from the guys that travel with him, and stories of him drinking beer and wine. How physically strong was he actually? Because you're a big dude, close to 400 pounds. Could he just manhandle you when he wanted to?
Yeah. Andre was, I worked with him a lot of time, but it was always amazing just to work with Andre. When we lock up, you could just feel, you don't feel human strength, you feel animal strength. Now, I worked with a bear years ago, one time, and that animal strength, you could feel that animal strength in Andre. That's why I know what animal strength feels like.
Right.
But he knew how to use it now. Andre could use it real well, and he was agile to be as big as he was.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how was you working with Andre? Because, man, I watched a match you had with Hulk Hogan in Madison Square Garden, and you guys had a hell of a damn match. Y'all had a hell of a damn match, and it was Madison Square Garden, sold out. How was it working with Hogan? Because, I mean, he's probably about the most over guy in the world at the time, and I think he liked working with you due to your style. And, again, always taking care of people, but you were vicious and you always got your stuff in. You got good heat on a guy, and you were perfect with that weeble wobble when he made that comeback to finally take that big bump. How was working with Hogan back in the days? Because you worked with some of the biggest names in the business.
I loved working with Hogan. Not just because he was the champion, but he was such an easy guy to work with, and had a good attitude. And I remember right before our match, he'd come to me and ask me what I want to do. And that was an honor. That was an honor to me.
Yeah.
But still, I would tell him, whatever you want to do, that's what we'll do. And let him come up with it. And he always come up with something good. Anytime I'm working, I would just be thrilled. Anytime I'm working with Hogan.
Hey, how was working with Undertaker? Because I watched the casket match y'all had the other day, and the build-up leading to that. And the way you sold the fear of that casket, it was just priceless. And you really thought, you were afraid of what the Undertaker was all about. How was working with Mark? Because he's another guy. It seems to me, when I worked with him 100 times, very light on his feet and fun to work with. How was that for you?
The same. I mean, he was a super nice guy anyway.
Yeah.
And he was easy for me to work with. He was really easy for me to work with. Good attitude. It was nice working with.
You didn't do any leapfrogs working with Undertaker, did you?
No. But I leapfrog Hogan.
Oh, you did? I got to go back and see if I can find that.
Yeah. I leapfrog Hogan.
Well, how was it? The Warrior just passed away not too long ago. You had a couple of matches with that guy, right?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of matches with him. Yeah, now with him, he treated me real well too. And the only thing about working with the Warrior, you go in there, he give you a couple of clothes hangers, and he pin you. That's the way it was with me when I worked with it.
Right.
Every night. And I feel like the fans were cheated, on house shows like that.
Right.
They're going in and stay. I ain't for going in there staying all night, but I sure, this 30 seconds under a minute. I didn't too much like that, but Vince was satisfied with it, and that's what we did.
So I know he liked to press a lot of guys overhead. I don't expect that happened with you.
No, I don't even remember him even slamming me. He might have, but I can't remember him.
Hey, you came and went to WWF several times, and many times not totally enamored with the money you were being paid. How was that aspect of the system in WWF? Because you're working with a lot of the biggest names in the business, but and I think you were an equal part of the draw because you were Kamala, but the paychecks didn't dictate that. How was it dealing with that? And did you have that meeting with Vince and say, "Hey man, I got to do better than this, or I got to go"?
Yeah, I had a couple of meetings with Vince. It probably was, I just didn't know how to negotiate. So I'm going to say a lot of that was my fault. I had a meeting with Vince, and Vince told me, say, if there's anywhere else that you would want to go or rather go, then you're welcome to go. He said, I think you're doing all right here. So, there wasn't nowhere else to go during that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I stayed right there just hoping that things would get better, but they never did. So I just put it in my mind. I know I've said a lot of things, but, I just won't dwell on it because it ain't going to undo it. And it's just water on the bridge.
Yeah, it's water on the bridge. One of the things I forgot to ask you about was your time in Puerto Rico, because from all estimations, that place is an extremely rough place to work, and that's where your friend the guy I looked up to, Bruiser Brody, was killed. And you tell stories in your book about you were warned, I think, by Brody. He goes, don't sit next to the walls because the people would poke coat hangers through the holes in the cinder blocks and jab you and throw cups of piss on you and all that stuff. How was Puerto Rico? Was it that wild? Was it that crazy?
Oh, that's a wild place, yeah. They told us, some of the guys told us to don't sit with your back to the wall. So sit out in the middle of the floor, because that's in some of the buildings, because they have holes in the concrete and all through the concrete blocks, and they would take coat hangers, sharpen them, and punch your kidneys. So they could kill you like that. So anyway, I never would sit with my back to the wall in certain type of buildings when I was over there. But I remember I was in the main event, and it was about 15 police who waited around to take me and the guy that was managing me out. And after we was on our way out, and a few minutes later, we was running back to the building. I was leaving because those Puerto Ricans got in behind us.
It's a rough place over there. You mentioned that they would throw socks with batteries in them, cups of piss, stuff like that in the ring. You're working heel over there, right?
Yeah, I was heel.
How much heat did you have? Did you get any of that?
Yeah, I had a lot of heat. Well, then it's according to who I was wrestling too. But I had a lot of heat, especially when I worked with Carlos Colon or Jose, the one that killed Brody. I had a lot of heat. But
how was working with Jose Gonzalez after the Bruiser Brody thing? Because I know that you went specifically to the spot, where Brody died, and I think it kind of, made you give you goosebumps because that was where the guy lost his life. And then there you are, a little bit later working with the guy. And you'd already worked with him many times before, but did that dynamic change after that happened?
Yeah. And I noticed when I was working with him the last time I worked with him, he sold the whole match. But the Puerto Rican people didn't feel sorry for him. They didn't feel sorry for him at all.
Right.
And I noticed when I went there, the guy showed me, so now you can still see that blood spot. It looked like a wet spot in the floor where Brody died, and they showed it to me. And that was my last time in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I never ended up going over there, man. It was I had a lot of friends over there that said it was a neat place to go work. But man, I've heard so many stories from Dutch Mantel. I never put on the tights over there, but I guess that's going to be all right because I don't think I'm putting them on anytime too soon. Hey, James, right now as we talk, when did you first start battling diabetes?
I first found out I was in the WWF in around 92 when I found out about it.
Now, how did these symptoms present, and what made you need to go to the doctor and find out about this diagnosis?
Yeah, we was on a show in California, and the doctor was checking our blood pressure. So Steve Lombardi was first, and Steve asked him what type of doctor he was. He said he was a diabetic specialist. So he said, "Can you tell if I'm a diabetic?" He said, "Yeah, right now." So he just popped his finger, and he told him, said, "No, you're not a diabetic." I said, "Well, can you do me?" And he said, "Yeah." He popped mine. He said, "You are a diabetic." And that's how I found out I was a diabetic, and he gave me he sent home a bunch of paperwork for me and how to take care of what to do, go to my doctor and all this stuff. That's how I found out about it.
But so how long did you stay in the business after you were diagnosed?
Well, I stayed in the WWF until 93, but I still stayed in the business. I've been doing independent shows up until 2011.
When did you started? You had to have, what was it, first your foot amputated?
Yeah. My last match was June 11, 2011. In October, I had my toes amputated. big sores, blisters, they got infected, and they wouldn't heal. So they took all my toes, took 3 of my toes off. Then it wouldn't heal, so after that, I went back to the doctor and they took my foot off. Oh, that was so much pain. That was on my left leg. That was so much pain. Then that wouldn't heal. So they took my leg off above the knee. And that's when it healed. Now, it was a terrible blow to me. I cried many days and nights. I cried, but then I said, well, I ain't going to let that hold me. Because my leg, they heal. I don't have no problem out of now. I'm on dialysis now, but that's okay. I still have a whole day every day to do a lot of things that I want to do. So I'm happy now.
Man, I saw some clips of you on YouTube, and you was in your music room playing your organ and singing. How do you stay so positive? Losing both your legs, how do you just keep your spirits up, James? Because the Kamala, the Ugandan giant, such a badass dude in the ring, and then this bout with diabetes is a son of a bitch, really. But you've overcome it. So how do you stay positive?
Well, what I do is when I have grandkids, I laugh and talk and joke with them, and they small, but they don't seem to let that bother them. Plus, every day I'm outside. I build chairs, I build lamps, and I keep myself busy. Chairs, lamps, and all kind of stuff, picnic tables. Now, I do all of this, from my chair. And it's not hard to do it. I enjoy doing it. So I'm just happy.
What's your favorite memories from the ring? Do you have any favorite memories, or a match, or a moment, or something that just you really had a blast doing?
Yeah, when I was at Mid-South and I was working with Junkyard Dog and a lot of the guys down there and making money, and I told my mom, I wasn't married at the time, but I told my mama that I'm saving every dime I get. We're going to get us a house. We're going to build us a house. And working with Junkyard Dog, I always say, Dog, you built that house for me. So working at Mid-South was, some of my favorite memories.
How close were you and the Dog? And because he was already kind of an established guy at that time and really, really hot, was any jealousy or animosity, or him not wanting you to take his spot, or you guys just hit it off like you did?
Now, when I first went to Mid-South, for some reason, I called Dog. I got his number, and I would call him because I was going to be working with him. I called him, but he would cut me off short, like he didn't want to talk to me. And that happened for a few times. But after that, we worked together and everything. We got to, he named me Wally Wally. And we all started laughing and talking together. He would always be looking for me when he get in the dressing room.
You mentioned you're on dialysis. Is the dialysis now a permanent thing, or is it a transition period you're going through? Will it stop?
No, it won't stop because at my age, I don't think my kidneys will get any better. So I was on the kidney list, but I say I'm not going to let them cut on me and give me no kidney, so I got off of it. And what I do now is do home dialysis.
Right.
I do it at home. I have a machine right beside my bed, and at night I just hook up and see, I do everything myself. And I hook up to the machine, and there's a long line on it. Well, if I need to go in the bathroom, I can do that through the night. And then around 5 o'clock in the morning, I stay on it 9 hours. But it's while I'm sleeping, and I don't just have to stay in the bed. I can roll around in my chair, in my room, watch TV, go and just do what I want to do. So it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And the machine do the work. And it do the work while you're watching TV, while you're sleeping. And when you know in the thing that it's off, like the next morning, it's off. And I get up and wash my hands. You got to wash your hands for 2 minutes and put your mask on and just unhook. To unhook it, take maybe 2 seconds. To unhook it, you go on about your day.
You wrote a book. The book is called Kamala Speaks. I'm going to give the information. I've already done it in my open, and I'm going to give it on the close when I shut this interview down. Kamala Speaks. How was the book writing process for you, James? Did you enjoy it? Going back down memory lane, were parts of it hard, or you seem to have very good recall as far as your memory of all the things that happened?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. A lot of people that asked me to write a book, but I wasn't interested in writing a book. But then this year, when this guy called me up about writing a book, Kenny, and he talked to me a few times on the internet, and I said, well, it ain't going to cost me nothing, so why not? So that's what I did. And after I got into it, I really enjoyed it, telling some of my stories when I was growing up and a lot of stuff like that. And I look forward to, doing it.
Well, we covered some of that in the conversation, and I want to cover some things and just talk to you. And I was looking forward to, I thought I was going to have a movie down in your neck of the woods, and I was coming down there to talk to you in person. It didn't happen because the movie didn't happen. But I obviously didn't want to drop all the 411 on our talk today, but to raise awareness for the Kickstart program to get the thing published, and so that the people can read about the book and the life and times of Kamala. And it's, again, one of my favorite gimmicks of all time. And it's like many people said about The Undertaker. There's nobody who could have done The Undertaker like Mark Calloway. There's nobody that could have done Kamala like James Harris. So it was great talking to you. I'm a huge fan. Been a huge fan ever since you first busted that video out there on Jerry Jarrett's farm. But James, it was great talking to you, and I'll stay in touch. And if I do get down in that neck of the woods, I'll bring my recording system, and we will talk again if you're up for it.
I'll be up for it, Steve. And I really enjoyed talking to you, and I watched a lot of your work, too. And I enjoyed it. Yeah, so I really appreciate you taking the time to conduct this interview.
Well, you got it, man. James, you take care of yourself.
You too, Steve. Thank you.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up my conversation with James Harris, the man who played Kamala, the Ugandan giant.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Hey, this is NFL Hall of Famer Ray Lewis. I'm excited to announce my new podcast, Everyday Greatness, the Ray Lewis Podcast. I'll be talking with friends, family members, old teammates, athletes, celebrities, moguls, and guess what? I'll be talking to you. Listen, this is all in the search for everyday greatness. So I'm asking you to come along with me on this ride. Download new episodes of Everyday Greatness, the Ray Lewis Podcast, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on PodcastOne.com. It's not what you have, it's what's inside of you that actually inspires greatness.